Yeah, I was on the 5. I remember. No, I was on over. What do they call it? What's the one with the women and outnumbered. And I was up there. They used to bring me up there all the time because Duck Dynasty was so popular.
With our viewers, it was popular.
Yeah, and the girls on that show, they were laughing. They said, "Oh, this guy Donald Trump, says he's running for president and all that," and they're laughing and they're kind of making like it's a joke. And they came and they said, "What say you, Willie?" And I said, "Tell you what, I think he's resonating with a lot of people." And you could just see them like they thought I was going to laugh and be joking. I said, "Don't underestimate the power of celebrity," because I was like, I'm just new to it, but man, when everybody knows who you are, it's a big advantage because you think about Kamala Harris, she was the vice president for 3.5 years. No one knew how to say her name.
Including her.
And she was the vice president.
When they got elected or whatever it was in 2020, I totally by accident, I called her Kamala.
Yeah.
Which is what I thought her name was. And the White House press secretary attacked me as racist. Which, okay, fine, but it really was, I would admit, it was totally accidental.
Right.
And so this kid on our staff found tape of her calling herself Kamala and then Kamala. And I just thought, who can't pronounce her own first name?
Yeah, that's...
If you were like, I'm Willie Robertson, or I'm Willie Robertson, you know what I mean? It would be kind of weird, right?
Hello, I'm Willie Robertson.
No, I think it's fair to settle on a pronunciation of your own first name. So one of the things I've never hunted with you before. You've become famous for bird hunting. You're an excellent shot. I just want to confirm that for people watching.
Oh, man.
It's not fake.
I've got to make my dad and brothers watch this.
It's true. It's true. You are. But you're not. You become famous from television. I just want to get right to it. You've written this book, Gospeller, which is not about hunting.
It's kind of.
What's it about?
Hunting for people. Hunting, fishing for people, perhaps.
Turning darkness into light, one conversation at a time.
Yeah, that's came with this book this year, and this was kind of the one I wanted to write. It was like, before I die, I want to write this book, and it's really about my faith, the faith that was passed down. The first chapters, my mom and dad's story about how they got their faith. We put out a movie last year called The Blind, which was their journey in faith, shot in the late 60s, 70s. And he was a bad guy. And
in what way?
Oh, he's just, he called himself a heathen. He was just a bad dude, just into everything he shouldn't have been into. He's married. He's got this young family. He's drunk all the time. He loses his job. He's ends up running a bar, and all hope literally was over. He had kicked us out of the home. He's a bad dad. He's a bad husband.
What do you mean he kicked you out of the home?
He kicked Mom and us out of the house, or out of the trailer.
Really?
Yeah. And and so and the one person who didn't give up on him was my aunt, Jan, his younger sister, and she'd go up to this bar he was running. Dad has like a master's degree. He was could have went professional quarterback. He played ahead of Bradshaw and in college at Louisiana Tech. Gifted athlete, had everything, ahead of him, and just pretty much throws it all away. And so my aunt would go up there and pass out little Bible tracts. She was a very charismatic Christian, and he hated it. He was like, "Stay out of here." And she begged this preacher to go preach the gospel to her brother. And I write in the book, I can just imagine this conversation, because the preacher's in Louisiana, the bar's in Arkansas. And I'm sure it was like, "Can you share the gospel with my brother? He's wayward." And he probably was like, "Yeah, tell him to come to church. We'll meet afterwards." "Oh, he's not coming to church. And you'll have to go see him. What does he do? He runs a bar."
In Arkansas.
Yeah, which one in town? It's not even in the state, And this guy gets in his car and drives to a bar, walks in.
Where was the bar?
With his Bible. It was in Junction City, Arkansas. And it was rough, it was a rough, rough spot.
That goes that sad.
And it was adversarial. Like, the guy goes in, Phil does not want to hear. He's not even invited in there. And I knew the preacher up until he passed away. And he says, he says, your dad's sitting there. He said he's got a pistol in his belt and a giant Budweiser, and he's about half lit. And the dad looks at him and says, "What you selling, preacher man?" And so the guy sits down, and nothing happens. Phil doesn't. There's no conversion. There's no just as I am bar baptism. Phil just said, "I'll keep that in mind." And so he leaves, and Phil's life even goes more in the tank. He ends up. The state police showed up to arrest him. He goes and lives in the woods for 6 months, I think. Like, he was that guy.
What were they arresting him for?
He had put 2 people in ICU, beat them up over a bar dispute. And he just takes off, lives in the woods. Says, "I'm on my own." And out there is when he got really sick, and nobody, everybody was trying to figure out where he was, but he was
He's got a wife and kids at this point too.
Well, then Mom ended up moved to Louisiana, and we're pretty much like, hope he doesn't die, but it's over. He's already kicked us out, and then he comes dragging back up into that town, and he pulls up to where my mom was working. She has a new job and trying to move on with her life, and she's like, "Call the police!" Like, "Oh no, he's all beard. He's living in the woods." And he pulls up and he's crying. He said, "Where's that preacher? I need to talk to him." And that's when Phil became a believer right there. So that's the first chapter in the book.
So how long did it take your mom to take him back into?
She took him right back. It was amazing. I always said if it weren't for Dad changing his life, but also if it wasn't for Mom forgiving him and
it's easier to change your life than to forgive someone who's abandoned.
Especially when you're just saying it, yeah. And who knows? I'm sure there probably wasn't the counseling that we had. They just and she needed help. I mean, she's got 3 young boys, and at the time 3, and I was the youngest at the time. So in the movie, I'm portrayed. I was very particular on who played me in the movie at 2 years old. I mean, you got to get that part right.
Oh, yeah. That's got to be a handsome toddler, was it?
So it was my grandson played me. My grandson played me about his great-grandfather. It was awesome. Cool. That's fun. It's fun to watch that movie. And it's a hard movie to watch. And Dad didn't even want to do it. It was tough for him to go back, and relive that, just pull all those. But we said, Dad and Mom, too, both, we just said, I think this can help a lot of people, a lot of people who are in similar situations. And so, they stayed together. And so the first chapter of the book is that. And so if you think about it like this, like 50 years ago that happened. If that doesn't happen, this family does not stay together. If the family doesn't stay together, there's no Duck Commander. If there's no Duck Commander, there's no Duck Dynasty. There's no podcast. I don't know where I would be. My whole life would look completely different. And so part of the reason for us being still so excited about our faith is because we feel like we owe everything we have to our faith. Had it not been for faith, it would have been over, Marriage was over, who knows?
So do you remember a time before your father was a Christian? Do your brothers?
They do. I don't really, everything I remember was great. And he went from, darkness to light. I mean, he literally, it's kind of like Saul and Paul in the Bible. It was like this old person, and then he just turned and just went, just full blaze. And he just wanted to share the gospel with everybody he knew, Because I guess he had lived and he said, I lived so bad, now I got to go help these people. And so he became known. He became a known gospeller, of just known for preaching the gospel to everybody.
A gospeller is someone who preaches the gospel.
It is. It's a real word. It's not. It's an old word. Had you ever heard of it?
No, never.
I'd never heard of it either. So I'm writing this book. It's 2020. COVID. And I was like, I want to write this book. And so it was about sharing your faith. And my wife, who's way smarter than I am, she comes in because I couldn't figure out what to call it. And she goes, Willie, I found this word. It's called gospeller. And it used to be very commonplace. And it was not necessarily pastoral. It was just like common folk who were just known for sharing the gospel. And it simply means somebody who shares the gospel with people either publicly or personally. And it didn't fall short of me that the word is literally a dinosaur. No one's ever heard of it.
Right.
But at one point in America, in Europe, this was a common word, and they were called known gospelers. I found a law. I want to say it was up in the Northeast, where it was like nobody can stop a priest or a known gospeler from preaching on the town square. It was actually in a law. Like that word was in a law.
Amazing.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So she found the word. And
So how did you grow up? Like, did you grow up in a world where Christianity was at the center of everything?
oh yeah, for sure. Number one, no doubt about it. So it wasn't like, oh, we should try to go to church. It wasn't. It was, and we had so many Bible studies that it just really went all week. Like, because what happened, we would, once you're kind of known for that, so people would bring people down to the house for Phil to talk to. There was the most wayward people. It was like murderers, like the craziest people ever. And Dad would just go there, no matter who they were, he would just sit there on the couch and he'd feed them supper, and then he would jump into the Bible and it was Fridays, Tuesdays.
Really?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. And then Dad started teaching Bible classes. So he would teach his Bible class on Sunday mornings. And then but he would just study like crazy, like just crazy person. And my father's never owned a computer. He's never owned a cell phone.
He doesn't have a cell phone?
Mm-mm.
How do you text him?
You don't.
Just like saying that.
You go find him. So I call and I'm like, there's a dude. There's a dude down there near. So you call him, but you got to go find him. And he's like in the woods, And you've got to, if you want to track him down, you got to go find him.
Does he still hunt?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. But then Dad would just read and study, and he would just thirsting for knowledge. He loved the knowledge, but then he loved trying to share that. And that's kind of the point of the book is turning darkness into light, one conversation at a time. And that the tagline comes from, it's funny how my business mixed with my faith. So we have some new products for deer, and it's this feature where you click a button. So right at that time where it's real dark, it's getting a little dim, still legal shooting hours, and it just boom, it just turns it into, it's daylight. It's crazy.
How? What is it?
It's pulling light, whatever ambient light is pulling in.
Right.
It's amazing. So we had this new product. So I'm looking at all the marketing material, and they had on there, turn dark into light. And when I saw that, I went, that's the tagline for my book, Turning Darkness into Light, one conversation at a time. So through a conversation, meaning had the guy not gone and shared with Dad, he was the one that actually planted the seed or shared with Dad, and boom, that's where it started, just that conversation. And then I watched hundreds and hundreds of other people just through a conversation lead to a life change. And so what I wanted to do was go through the book and go through kind of how to do that, because a lot of people, they're so intimidated, they don't know what to say, and they like the idea of it, and they're like, well, I hope somebody tells somebody about their faith or about Jesus, but it ain't me, I don't know how to do that. It's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know the Bible well enough. And so we kind of disqualify ourselves from a lot of those, for a lot of those reasons. And so I just tried to go through and tell stories, and I'll pull stories from the New Testament, just conversations, especially in the book of Acts. That's where you're really seeing kind of the church meet with the world, and just pull the conversations like, this is what they said, and this is how you could share with others.
So your family, despite living in a very rural area, you've got a duck call business, and you're seriously Christian. Mm-hmm. You wind up in television.
Yeah.
Which is like the opposite of all of that.
Yeah.
So how do you have the crew comes in for wherever, you're meeting with the studio executives from wherever, but not from West Monroe, Louisiana.
No.
How do you begin a conversation about your faith with someone like that?
Well, it was obvious. I think the faith just comes through it was going to be hard to separate the faith. And so, but I understood television enough to know that, it can't just be a sermon, it's got to,
right.
And we live our
I'm saying
lives.
the people who run television, I have noticed from spending a lifetime there, not super receptive to the message.
They weren't as, a lot of people ask me that, like we ended every show with a prayer. And, and I almost get this like weekly. It's like, I bet they didn't want that prayer, but that wasn't the case. They were like, oh, it's cool, like
Good for them.
yeah, it wasn't a battle at all. It was just a good way to end the show. They knew faith was important to us, and that's how we ended every show, was with that prayer. But there wasn't a lot of resistance at all from that. So, I think people, they thought that was the case or wanted to.
No, I love hearing that it's not.
Yeah, and it really wasn't. It was like, and then once it works, and once it's
right,
successful,
commercially successful,
the biggest show ever in reality TV, there's like, oh, we love that prayer. That was our idea. No, it worked. And so once we talked about how to do it, and my father he was so funny with the show. So when I went down to tell him, I said, Dad, we got this idea of doing this television show, and he hated it. He's like, I don't want to do it, And I said,
where'd the idea come from?
I said, it's a way to get the gospel out to more people. And literally, that's what I told him. And he sits in the chair and goes, I never thought about that. He goes, you think it can? I said, I don't see why not. He gives a thumbs up, and he's like, all right, we'll do the TV show. If it can get the gospel out to more people.
So you do a show like that. What are the mechanics of it? Because it seems like it would take over your life completely.
It does.
So how does it work?
It's a lot of, we didn't know when we started. Like, we had no idea. I get an email. So we had done another television show on the Outdoor Channel, and in the same way, like it was my wife's idea. Corey watched reality television.
Is she from West Monroe?
She's from West Monroe as well. She's from the city. I'm from the sticks. So she says she's watching all this reality television, and she said, Willie, I think your family needs to have a reality TV show. And I'm like,
that's not a compliment.
Well,
when your wife says your family needs a reality TV show, that's
what I said. I said
that's usually an attack.
Well, that's why I didn't realize it. And I said, Corey, we're just normal people. And she goes, Willie, y'all ain't normal. Like, and then so what? She was like, you guys are like. She goes, I've been with you for a long time. And
where'd you meet her, by the way?
Summer camp, 5th grade.
Wow.
Camp Chioka. Yeah, I saw her sitting on the swing. So her grandfather and father were business guys, very successful business guys. And part of their charity work, they had built this summer camp. And so now that we're new believers, my parents are, that was a new thing. Like, now we're going to church summer camp, and we'd never been to church summer camp. It was like, and we couldn't even afford it. So when we would pull up to the camp, my mother had no money. And so we would have our bags packed, like we're ready. And she was like, all right, here's the deal. Y'all stay here. Let me go see if I can trade working in the kitchen for you guys to come. If they say yes, you're in. If they say no, we're going back to the house. And we're just like, please say yes. What's funny is it was my wife's parents who were making the decision. As it turns out in life, I later married their daughter who ran the camp. It was the same camp I was hoping to get into.
That's amazing.
So every time they said yes, and so we would go, and I see this girl, she's on a swing, so I can see her to this day. And she got this big giant, 1980s hair. I'm like, who is that girl? And they said, it's Corey Howard, her dad and them, they're the ones who run the camp. And so I went over and talked to her. I invited her on the Moonlight Hike, and she said yes, and we went on the Moonlight Hike in 5th grade. No, we didn't keep dating. We didn't get married that year, but we
How
waited.
How old were you when you got married?
18.
You were 19, she was 18?
Correct. I proposed to her when she was 17, I was 18.
What'd her dad say?
He didn't like it.
I bet he didn't.
He didn't like the idea of that. He wasn't a fan. They were very well off. They were they lived in a neighborhood. So and I pull up in this neighborhood, Tucker, and I'm like looking around. It's like mowed grass,
They mowed their grass?
And sprinkler systems. I'm just like, whoa, man, this is crazy. I'm looking around, and there's not one visible burn pile anywhere. And I'm going like, what are these people doing with their garbage? I didn't know there was another way. So we're going to have the talk, right? So he's like, and I know them. Like, we went to church together, so I knew her family. And but he just was like, no, y'all need to wait, and you're too young. And And we're just dead set. We're like, no, we're getting married. So so when we have a meeting, and he's a smart business guy, and he's got all these papers. He's got statistics and papers and files, and I'm just sitting there, white t-shirt, like he's blowing me away. And he's making me so mad, because I'm like giving him, I'm pitching vision, man, And,
What was your vision?
well, Christianity, like we're brothers, like, come on, man, it's going to be great. And he's like, you haven't thought about all these things in life. And finally he just goes, he's getting so mad. He's like, I thought he was going to hit me. He's like leaning up on me. He said, where exactly do you plan on living with my daughter? And I said, well, I reckon I'll pull a trailer up on the back of Phil's house and we'll just live there for free.
That was your vision?
Not the answer the dude wanted to hear. And we'll burn our garbage in the yard like normal people do.
Wait, so how long did it take?
32 years later, we're still married.
That's amazing.
And we're great. So her parents' house and my house, literally, it's like I know you don't play golf. It's a pitch and wedge away from me. And we were just right beside each other.
Now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see him every day. And I learned, most of what I learned in business, I learned from him.
How many grandkids did you give him?
8. 8 so far.
You have 8.
I have 8.
So he has...
Oh, how many?
8 great-grandchildren. How many kids did you have with his daughter? How many kids do you have?
How many kids do I have? 6.
6, okay. He's got to be pretty
It's just the way you ask him.
Sorry. I asked you backwards.
Let me just start again. I have 6 children and 8 grandchildren, so yeah.
Amazing.
But yeah, they're great. And so we live, and we all live right there. We're just all connected and live beside each other.
So how long did it take you to win a yes from your father-in-law?
I mean, it was after that night. He wanted me to come over to their house. And so she was in college. So she wasn't even there when all this happened. She was in college. I wasn't going to college. I was going to seminary. I was going to be a preacher. And so Corey calls and says, Dad wants you to come over. And I said, no, he's going to come pick you up and take you over to their house. I said, no. She said, why not? And I said, I'll have to walk home. She goes, what do you mean? I said, oh, it's going to go bad. And I don't have a ride. I'm going to have to walk all the way back to my house. It's like 7 miles. I said, no, I'm not. Time to come over here. So he comes over to where I was staying. And I was living with my brother at the time. And it was he and his mom and me. We were on the couch together. And my mother-in-law, she was in between us. But I thought, man, I think he may punch me. And I was ready. I mean, I have 3 brothers. And so I was like, we just got to fight. Let's just fight. I was like, let's go, But then it was after that night, they said, okay. And then I think just 6 months later, we got married. And we were driving to the wedding, and he said, you know what? I said what I said, and that's the way I felt, but now we're good. And I literally never heard another word about it. Like,
really?
Yeah, he was great.
So it was your wife that came up with the idea for Duck Dynasty?
Yep. Then I had to go tell Phil, and then, because originally it was on the Outdoor Channel.
Yeah. What was it called?
And I was approached by Benelli Shotguns at SHOT Show. Have you been to SHOT Show?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was approached by them right after she said that. And they were like, hey, are you guys interested in doing a reality TV show with the shotguns? And I was like, Corey just said we should do a reality TV show. And he goes, well, let's have a meeting. And so so we sat down, and they said, hey, we'll pay for production. You guys will be on the show. Thankfully, they had 2 guys that came in that they had just hired who they came out of reality television. So he'd hire them for like their in-house, all their commercials and stuff that they do. And we love Benelli. I mean, we love the shotgun. So we was like, yeah. And so we're going through the deals. And so right at the end, Corey says, she's such a smart business person. And I'm excited. I'm like, hey, our business is going to go up. So I go to Phil. I'm like, Phil. He's like, oh, it's a terrible idea. And I'm like, Dad, we'll sell more duck calls. Like, we'll be on the Outdoor Channel. Like,
plus free shotguns.
Plus free shotguns. I was like, plus free other stuff. I was like, this is the smoking deal, you know. And so Corey says, so we're going to go up to Maryland. I think that's where they're, Maryland. And we're going to have this meeting. And Corey, she'd been reading these books, and she goes, well, I think they should pay y'all a talent fee. I'd never heard that word. I said, what is talent fee? She goes, like, they should pay y'all to be on the show. I said, Corey, don't get greedy. Like, this is a gift. They're paying for production. And
for shotguns. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, well, it won't hurt to ask. And I said, what? Okay. But I said, here's the deal. When you ask, if you get any weird sense, abort the mission, get out of it. Do not screw this thing. So I was like, this is our big chance. You're going to ruin it by asking for too much. So we go in the meeting. The guy's going through. He said, okay, we'll start production here. And we'll do this and that. And he goes, I think we're about ready to go. And Corey's like, one more thing, you know. And I'm like, oh, God. You know, I'm like, and she's like, we're thinking you should pay the guys a talent fee. And he was like, oh, what were you thinking? And she said, we were thinking $30,000 a piece. This would be for the whole season. And I'm making $28,000 a year. That's my salary.
What were you doing?
That was my job. I made $28,000.
But what was your job? Oh, at the duck call.
That was my whole yearly job. I made $28,000. She just asked for 30 to do this thing, which would essentially double my pay. And when she said 30, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's way too much. And the guy literally just goes, yeah, okay, no problem. And I'm like, crap, we should have said 50. We should have said 50. Like, she said 30. So then, and here's what kind of CEO I am. So we were excited. So we go back to the house. So I go back down to Dad's house. Jason's there. We're all in the house, and they're waiting to hear what happened with the TV show. And I walk in. I'm like, well, boys, we're fixing to do us a television show on the Outdoor Channel. And guess what else I got us? $30,000 a piece. And I act like it was my idea. And everybody just like, we were like, we did it. It's over. We finally figured it out. We got free shotguns. We doubled our pay. We have to do a TV show. We have no idea what we're doing. And we launched into that show.
What year was that?
This would have been probably 2008.
Yeah.
Somewhere in 2008. So we launched into the show. We were able to cut our teeth. So we've been making DVDs and hunting videos. Now we go on this TV with these boys from reality TV were there. So we really learned how to do television, how to do, what was going to become ultimately Duck Dynasty. It was a different show. Like half of it was just like hardcore guns, and all the good. They were showing their products. And, but the other half was just like silly reality stuff that we just came up. And I kind of focused on that. My brother and dad and them, they did the hardcore hunting. And then I was over there doing hey, we could show this. And we could just wild, crazy stuff we were doing. And the show was super popular. Like in that world, everybody loved it. And, we won awards, and our sales went up. More people were buying duck calls and our T-shirts. So it was like, hey, we did it, man. And I had to sell. Part of the deal was I had to sell half the advertisers. So because in that when you get your commercial, then you have to go sell them. So Benelli would sell half, and I sold half of them. And it was so funny. Like it was hard selling, but ultimately it was going to be Duck Dynasty. It was hard selling an ad for this thing. I ended up selling all mine. I would sell my ads, and that was part of the deal I had to do. So then we get an email. I get a generic email, information at Duck Commander, and there's no telling how many of these just never even get looked at.
Of course.
It's a dude. He said, I'm a producer in Los Angeles. I've watched the show on Outdoor Channel. He saw that show. I think you guys have a really big show. Give me a call. Left his number. Secretary comes in and says, I got this email. Somebody saying they're from Los Angeles. And she said, do you want me to throw it away, or do you want me to respond? And I looked at it and I said, I'll respond. So I respond, say, hey, this is Willie. What are you thinking? And I get on the call with him, and man, he's a fast talker. He's LA. He's like, Willie, I'm telling you, this is gonna be the biggest show. I mean, I'm telling you, I've got something that's big. Yeah, and like you have a really big show. Like we gotta take this thing bigger. This is on cable. This is on, and I'm thinking this guy's full of crap. I'm like, I said, you think so? And he said, Willie, you will not be able to walk down the street without everybody recognizing who you are. And I thought, God, this guy, like, he's laying it on thick, you know. And so I said, so what do we need to do if we were to do that? He said, we'll make a sizzle reel. And unfortunately, we had just done like 3 seasons of this show. So we took 3 minutes, and then he started pitching around to networks. And there was a lot of interest. You got to remember, this is the time Louisiana, the tax credits were big, like before Georgia had it. Before, right. Louisiana was kind of the hotbed. And there was tons of shows. I mean, our state is like, there's so much culture and just fun people in our state anyway. And so you had Billy the Exterminator, Swamp People, Sons of Guns. All these are Louisiana shows. Bayou Billionaires. There was tons of shows being shot there. So if you had anything in Louisiana, because they knew they could go save 40%, you know, in the state. And he saw it, and we were on the Outdoor Channel. He saw it. And then out of nowhere comes A&E. A&E, I didn't really know anything about A&E. I didn't watch, didn't even know what it was. And he said A&E is interested in 2 pilots. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he says, well, if they pick it up, that's where we want to be. It's a good mixed audience, like men and women watch A&E, big company, you know, it's, you know, combined with History Channel, ABC, Disney, all this, and ESPN. And so he said, the problem is if they pass on his dad, like, because then everybody will just say, oh, they passed on him. And so we shot 2 pilots for A&E, had no idea what we were doing. And then the film crew got giant. You know, they sent down this huge crew, and we had no idea. And we just kind of went into it, not really know what we were doing.
So what's it?
And didn't know if it was good or not. I didn't know, you know. And so what was interesting was they didn't know what exactly they were getting. So if you kind of just looked at a picture of us, you'd be like, I think they thought we like grunted and like, you know, and couldn't speak English. So they didn't, I think they thought it was going to be like danger, like alligators are coming out of the water, you know. So they come down, and so A&E comes, so we shot the pilots, we sent it off. And so they call and we're like, well, we have good news and bad news. The bad news is this is not the show we were ordering, like, at all. We were all shocked. And we're like, uh-oh. They said, the good news is it's way better than what we thought we were getting. And they were like, this is a family show. Because nobody had put us in any category of family show, even though we were a family. But it was like, they just didn't, I think they thought kind of like, we're going to laugh at these, but, you know, these are, and they just totally didn't.
It was a Honey Boo Boo thing.
They did, right. They didn't realize, right, that, because some of their ideas, initially, it was like, the women folk are out, you know, getting opossums, you know, and skinning them out. And my wife's like, these women folk we don't even go in the woods, you know. So, but they saw, and then there was this comedy, because the first show we did on Outdoor Channel wasn't really funny. And once we saw this kind of comedic thing come out, that was what really, I think, set it apart. It's funny. It's you know, something you can laugh, you know. It's a funny show.
What's the process of filming it?
Well,
you said your house got descended on by a swarm of producers.
It was, yeah. So we shot in all our houses, especially mine. Especially my house was kind of because the show was kind of, we didn't know any of this going in because we didn't know what we were doing, but it was kind of shot through my eyes. And so you would have like Willie's dad, Willie's wife. So you're watching as a viewer, you're watching it through my eyes. So I was supposed to be the normal guy. I'm the normal person. And then everybody else is crazy, you know, chaos is happening. And to some extent, they are crazy. And so you had some people that are just kind of like themselves, like my father Dad never understood what exactly we were doing. Like he never understood the show. He never liked it. He never understood it. He told me early on, he was like, well, tell him we need more preaching on this show. I said, Dad, there's another Robertson family with a show like that. It's the 700. Like, we're not that show. Like, this is not that.
Are you related to them, by the way?
And he was like, I'm not. No, I'm not. Not that they haven't asked me for money, so I guess I'm not. Everybody related to me has asked me for money. So.
You're like an NBA player.
So yeah, he never quite understood the show. He so my dad got to this one. So my dad got so mad one time. He we were saying they just didn't understand. He thought it was so goofy, and we were just being stupid. And so we sit down. This is my favorite thing that ever happened to Duck Dynasty that never got shown. So we had this dinner scene every time,
Yeah.
And so we're on like episode 80, And the part of TV is, you got these kids. They come in from LA, they're 25 years old, and they're telling you what to, all right, go. You don't look right. And, it's kind of weird when you become the CEO of your company and you're doing this. Now you're listening to people you don't know and they're telling you what to do. And so I think my dad had gotten a little past the point of that at this point.
That's pretty quickly.
So we're setting all the table up and we're just sitting there, we've done this 1,000 times, and Jibs on the table and so like, okay, everybody ready? And so the little young producer's like, okay, and Mr. Phil, you'll pray, action. So we bow our heads. And Phil said, Father, I pray for these bunch of heathens from Los Angeles, California, with their latte coffees and their filthy language. I pray you don't burn them all in hell for their sinfulness. Amen. And we were laughing so hard because none of us knew that was coming. None of us realized. And so we all look up and we're just like, look around and go, what was that? And this young producer, he never missed a beat. He was like, thank you, Mr. Phil. Now can we do another prayer that we could actually put on television?
That never aired?
Never aired. It was so funny. So, yeah, Dad didn't quite understand the.
But I mean, these cameras are in your house for what, months?
They are, but well, it was like walking into here.
Yeah.
We're filming in here.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good point.
Obviously,
And we're in a pheasant camp in South Dakota.
We are in a pheasant camp. I was a little worried too about that. I thought we did a bad idea. So we stayed up too late last night.
That's true.
We were telling the story. It was so fun.
That's true.
And I'm glad we did. So we get up this morning, we go shoot tons of birds.
Quite a few
Walked
birds.
around. And then we go, I think I ate 2 pounds of meatloaf.
At least.
Yeah. You saying at least I ate that?
I did.
Okay, you did as well. I didn't know. I didn't look at your plate.
Yeah, a lot.
And I thought, that's not a good recipe for doing a long podcast. I was like,
not at 4 p.m. after hunting at a big lunch.
Man.
Did you
that was part of my demands though. Because I've heard recently about people and their podcasts and demands and what
contract writers, yeah.
And I said, I demand we have to fly to another state, shoot birds that morning.
Yes.
This should be every podcast.
And it was literally in the contract that you signed with us where you demanded lemon squares after. And I thought that's a little much.
Yeah. No, I said, let's just go. We have to go find somewhere to. Actually, this was your idea. And so thank you.
It was my idea.
I was going to go to Maine.
Yeah, but we don't have any pheasants in Maine.
No, this was a better. This was a way better idea.
If you could, I don't know how many birds we shot this morning, but if you could shoot 2 grouse a day in Maine, you're the best grouse hunter in Maine.
Really? You're a good shot too.
I'm
telling your audience.
I would hope so.
I'm telling your audience you're a good shot.
I'm not half as good.
I wasn't surprised. I mean, I knew you hunted a lot.
I'm not half as good as I should be after all the practice I've had. I'll tell you that. But no, it's actually I missed a bird. The bird got too aggressive with me and it intimidated me. And I always think, when you're bird hunting, you're the pursuer, you're the aggressor, you're the predator. And when the bird turns it around and tries to fly up your nose, I freeze and miss the bird every time.
And you had the gun.
Because it's unnatural.
I was here a month ago doing this pheasant hunting. I didn't grow up pheasant hunting, so we were poor. So I have a pheasant come. He literally is coming at my face.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. And I took the shotgun and I went back like I was going to hit it like a baseball bat. And if I had a little more cojones, I would have. Because the guide said you should have done it.
It's that close.
It was that close. I think he'd been hit, so he's coming down, and he's like, and I'm like, oh, he was just so close. And there's a picture, and you see me go like this, and you just go right. And then I thought, why didn't I? Can you imagine
if you just
the presence of mind? That's what separates the most of it to that one, the just grab that sucker out of the air. Oh, would have been.
That's an Aaron Rodgers move.
And I blew it. And one day I'm gonna schedule months of pheasant hunting so I can get that same scenario to happen again.
I watched my father get hit right in the chest on a driven peg shoot for pheasant when I was a kid, and it knocked him right down. He was talking to someone, and the pheasant just came in and hit him right, and just bam, and he's a big man.
Did you grow up pheasant hunting?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It used to be only crazy people thought they were being watched all the time, surveilled, the guy mumbling next to you on the bus. But now anyone who knows what's going on thinks that because it's true. Your phones are listening to you. Tech companies tracking all your online activity in order to profit off of what ought to be private information. Governments are watching too. It's a corrupt system. It's frightening. And the worst part is it's all legal. The government certainly will not help stop this. Of course, the intel agencies love it. So it's up to you to protect yourself, and that's where ExpressVPN comes in. ExpressVPN, which we use here, is an app that sends 100% of your online activity through secure encrypted servers. That means nobody can see what you do online, not internet service providers, not data brokers, not intel agencies. Don't believe it? Listen to this. Within the last year, ExpressVPN received over 400,000 data requests from tech companies and government agencies, but did not share a single piece of customer data. That's because the company has a strict zero logs policy. ExpressVPN cannot and will not share your data. They don't even have your data to share. ExpressVPN is easy to use, takes one click. It's rated #1 by the experts at CNET and The Verge. And right now, you get an extra 3 months for free when you use a special link. Go to expressvpn.com/Tucker and get that extra months for free. It's expressvpn.com/Tucker.
We were poor. We were poor too. Yeah, we were really poor.
Yeah,
we were super poor.
You were middle class too. Oh, yeah. How did you get off from McDonald's to go work and do your pheasant?
I've come a long way. Just bootstrapping it. So, did you, what was it like to go from being maybe locally famous to nationally famous?
Yeah, night and day. But it was, man, I'm so appreciative. So it was like we did just enough to get comfortable enough to figure out what it is that you're doing. And I love the progression. I think 0 to, just like nothing to something. But it was just enough. Like we knew just enough TV, and then we had done some, stuff to where if we went in Bass Pro Shop or what, it was like, there's duck commander guys. And, but just enough. But then once we hit the really national spotlight, especially to the level our show was, it was crazy. It was just crazy.
It's not good for you.
No, it wasn't good. No, in many ways, business, it's not, because business went crazy, and it trying to do everything, because you're still trying to, you have a business, you're trying to run your business. And then, ours was really unique because the nature of the show looked like we were goofing off, or everybody then I'm getting, 50,000 orders. Well, we can't fill them. And then I got people emailing me, I just saw y'all were goofing off. I just watched the show. It was like that's really what we were.
Go build some more duck calls.
So then, I had to go do a video going, hey guys, look, Willie from Duck Dynasty. We really are working. It's not everything you see on the TV show is what exactly happened that day, exactly that day. So it was crazy. It was, the first holidays we crashed our computer, I think 3 times. It was so bad because they ordered their product, so we got their money, and then it crashed, but we didn't know what they ordered. So we have your money. We don't know what
What'd you do?
Just tried to put out saying, hey, call us, and so they call and be like, I didn't get my order. And we're like, why don't you tell us what you ordered? Well, just generalize, whatever you think, just spitball it, we'll get as close as we can. We're just trying to ship stuff out. People are like, those are good problems to have. And I'm like, no, they're not. They're terrible problems. They're terrible problems to have. Just really overwhelmed, just wasn't ready. And to think that when we did this show, we're having this meeting, and my wife, Corey, says, do you think we should order more duck calls? And I said, no, nobody's going to order a duck call. Even if you like the show, why would you need a duck call? I mean, if you're not a duck hunter, what do you, was I wrong?
Really? People were buying decorative duck calls.
People were just buying any duck call. Like they just wanted that.
Unless you
put it
hunt
on a
duck.
shelf. Well, it was just they wanted a piece of the show, and that was the piece they wanted.
How many duck calls did you sell?
Oh man, like $1.5 million or something crazy.
Duck calls?
Yeah. And the year before we'd done 50,000, so 50,000 to 1.5 million.
That's crazy.
It's insane. It's insane. We were working 24 hours a day. I had crews. I had everybody who could possibly.
How much child labor?
Not much child labor except for ours. We made ours work.
What did your kids think of the whole thing?
That's what I think that's your big fear. I mean, your fear is how does it play with them?
Yeah.
I always say this, in life, I've been able to do a lot of things, and most of the things my kids are going to do or have done, I've already done. Go to college, have children, get married, move. The only thing I had zero experience with was being famous at a young age.
Yeah.
I understood it at 40 because I was 40 when the show came out. But being 16, I had no idea. And also, you've got the beginning of social media too. And so that's new as well. And so, I think they probably struggled, with some of it and struggled, certainly some aspects of it, understood the good of it and, figured out a way how to use it, use what it was for the good and then ditch the stuff that was.
So they're not mad about it now?
No, they're not.
How many are married?
4, 5.
How do you get your kids to get married so young? Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't encourage it.
You didn't?
Well, that was the day I told you about Corey's parents. Her dad's mad. Oh, you're too young. This is what made him mad. I said, how old were y'all? 19, 18, the same age. I was like, you're the same age we were when we got married. So it was interesting that, because he couldn't say, oh, we waited. And, but no, they wanted to get, they got around the same age and they got married as well. But it's not like I said, here's how we do it around these parts, not at all. They just, I don't know, you find the right one and then make a commitment and go.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. It really is great. Well, it's great because then you're young. I got 8 grandkids. I'm a young grandparent. I mean, it's fun when you're younger, You're not.
So how long did the show go?
5 years, 130 episodes.
Wow. Why'd they end it?
There were a lot of reasons. I think, one, it gets more expensive. It just keeps getting more expensive.
Yeah.
Everything goes up. It's like
your fees go up.
Everything goes up. Not just ours, everybody, production. Everybody's going, hey, if this keeps, generating income. And so I think, it's, I'm assuming, I think it's probably like a baseball player. Like you're paying a guy $10 million at first base. He hits 25 home runs. We could pay a guy $500,000. Maybe he'll hit 12 home runs and good enough. We'll save him. And so I'm sure they're like, we could make other shows. And some of it just played out. I mean, you just kind of run out of it. Like, what do we do now? It's like you still have more kids and stuff. But it's like you've done so many. 130 episodes with 2 storylines is 260 stories. That's a lot of stories,
Yeah.
We were certainly ready. We were ready for a break. That's a lot of work, man. The first year, man, we filmed 10 months that year. Yeah, this is not some couple of month deal, and this is not like
How many days a week?
The first year we did 6 days a week, and we did even some Sundays, Sunday afternoons. Just getting it, man. We were just...
That's crazy. For
it was
10
hard.
months, 6 days a week?
It was hard. It was a lot. But we were just, at that point, we're like, figured out. And then they were just, it became so popular.
You must have gotten close.
Because they wanted more evidence. They was like, we need more. And so it was like, keep making them. And so finally we're like, time out, renegotiate. And so part of that, we went to Monday through Thursday schedules, gives us a day off, at least a day to go to the hospital. I mean, to go to the doctor, to go do, just stuff, stuff you need to do. Because it's not like you worked every day, but you're on the schedule for that long. So some days you may not be, you may not be on that afternoon, but you won't know until it comes out, on the schedule, kind of where you're at. So.
Did you ever feel misrepresented by the show?
No, because I kind of played a part. Like I had a part that I played on the show, and it was kind of consistent. It just kept me. It was authentic. I mean, it was like I'm the CEO, I'm the head guy, and so I think in order to make some of it work, you kind of had to have a bad guy, somebody that's like, and I mean, it's kind of that's where comedy comes from. It's like you think about like the stories you think about in school or in church growing up, what are the funniest things? This is when you're going to get in trouble, right?
Of course.
It's like, oh, it's so funny. You can't stop laughing. So some of that was kind of like that, let them do stuff. And then I'd be like, this is so stupid, and like, cause it was stupid, but, so I just kind of, so for my role in it, and then I was also the guy that narrated you through the show. So I had to keep you up on what was going on. Because people get confused. And if you get confused, and if you can't figure a show out, you'll just change the channel.
Of course.
Because it makes you feel dumb.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I can't watch this. It's, because I can't figure it out.
Did you watch the shows?
We did. I did. I never liked watching really myself, and I don't like watching speeches or other stuff. But we watched that one together because half of the show I never knew what happened because it wasn't the parts I was in.
Right.
To be like, meanwhile, down at the river. And so I didn't see that stuff. And it was hilarious. I'd been watching it going, this is so funny. Because I didn't know what it was. I was watching it with everybody else in the world. And so it was so funny. God, I would get so tickled at some of the stuff they would do. So we would watch it together. Like my family would all get together. And the kids were younger, so it was cool for them to be able to, kind of see themselves on TV.
How are they treated at school because of it?
Different. I mean, everybody's treated different, but it was probably worse, probably good and bad, they didn't go to school as much as, like they were out of school a lot. So we had a teacher there on set just because it was a lot of days. So they weren't, they just had to do a lot of the school. Sadie did a ton of school from the house just because that's what she had to do. But they were in a Christian school, and they were pretty lenient. I mean, not on the grades. They were just lenient on, they let them play sports and they could still participate and stuff like that, even though they were kind of doing school from afar.
What year did it end, the show?
12 to 17 maybe. So
it would have to end at 7. I mean, at some point you're going to run into the political problem, right? A show like that.
Yeah. When you say political problem.
Well, I mean, I don't know. You live in Louisiana, you run a hunting related company, and you're Christian. So you're probably going to reach a different political conclusion. You're probably going to be pro-Trump. I mean, just judging by all that.
That is true. Yeah, there was Trump. Yeah, most of the show was President Obama. That was he was the president. And yeah, Trump was right there.
Did you address it on the show? I don't remember that, Trump.
No. No, we didn't. We didn't. Because it kind of wasn't that kind of, it wasn't like really reality like that. It wasn't like you didn't see stuff from like I remember we would be filming at a grocery store. We'd have to turn the magazines around because we would be on the cover of the magazine. But we're filming the show around. They'd be like, hey.
It's too fourth wall coming down.
It was a little, but yeah, Trump was, no, that was right when Trump, I stick my toe in the water a little bit on that one.
On the air you did?
No, just in life. Yeah, just with Trump.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a different world now, though, right? I mean.
Well, in my mind, I was a little naive. I just thought, well, this is cool. I like Trump. I like when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, that's what we need. We need a business guy. We got to get away from these politicians. We need that's exactly who we need. Yeah. And he had a reality TV show. So I was like, hey, he's like, so, and so I meet him. You probably never heard the story. So first time I met him, I was doing, I was in Oklahoma City. My son was speaking at something. I went to hear him speak. We had been elk hunting. Not my son, but me and a buddy. We're elk hunting, and the dude has a plane. I said, hey, can we stop in here? My son's giving a speech. Yeah, cool. So we go in there and see him. We're at lunch, and this guy said, hey, guess who's in town? I said, who? He said, Trump. He's doing one of his rallies. This is back 15. And, he's doing these rallies. He was at the Oklahoma State Fair. And I was like, oh, we got to go. We got to go to this. This is awesome, And I had just met Don Jr., who's a hunter. And that's how
certainly is.
That's how we met each other. We just met and talked. And so I emailed him or texted him and just said, hey, your dad's doing this rally. I was going to go check it out. And he's like, cool, I'll set it up. And I remember I got a police officer because I was like, there's no way I can go to this Oklahoma State, but I'm going to get mobbed at this place, And I may be more recognizable than Donald Trump in Oklahoma City in 2015. And so I have this cop with me. There's an RV in the back. So it's like a outdoor, there's a giant crowd, it's an outdoor thing. There's an RV. So I get on this RV, me and my buddies and my cop friend, and there's these other people in there. There's like cater person. There's these people. And this is a funny story. There's a dude on there and he comes up to me. He's got an earpiece in, but he's like got beach shorts on, oh, who is this guy? I said, he said, can I get a picture of you? I said, yeah. I said, what do you do? Because I didn't know who worked for Trump. Trump's not there yet, you know? And he goes, oh, I do all kind of stuff, He said, do you want to see my gun? Now, you've been around enough. Has any security person ever asked you, do you want to see my gun? No, that's not a...
No, it's not a thing.
And I'm looking at this cat going, what in the world? So I take a picture and... Corey Lewandowski gets on the bus. He goes, if you ain't with Willie, get off the bus. And so these people start getting off the bus, right? And so here comes the whole entourage, and Trump gets on. First time I met him, he's like, Willie, look at this. Willie, do you see the crowd is huge? 2000. He goes, even for you, it's huge, right? I mean, this is a huge crowd for somebody like you, And so I'm kind of laughing. My buddies are just like, this is the funniest thing ever. I look back on you can ask Corey this story. I look back, that dude who said he had a gun is talking to Trump. He didn't get off the bus. And he's got like his book or something. And I could see Trump he just looks, and that's back when he had those giant security guards, he wasn't the president, he used to have those 6'9" guys. So Trump just gives us a look, there's a look here. They come to me and go, is that dude with you? I said, no, he's not with me. I said, and he said he had a gun. And when I said that, they grabbed this guy by the back and just threw him off the bus. And Trump said, these spies are everywhere. And so I was like, and they're all looking, I could tell, man. And I remember I looked up and I said, what kind of operation are y'all running here? Well, then that really made it bad because then I'm making fun of their security. But it was a true story. This dude.
Who was he?
Thankfully, I had the cop. It was a detective from Oklahoma City. So a week later, he calls me. He says, Willie, he said, I found out about that guy. He brought the porta potties in to the fair. And he tells the fair director, anything else I can help you with, I'll do. Well, they start putting him to work doing all he has an earpiece because they're telling him his whole thing was he wanted to get Trump to sign his book. He did the whole thing. He goes, he didn't even know you were going to be there. You were a bonus. He was excited. He got the picture of me. Isn't that wild?
That's amazing.
So I'm on the bus. So Trump's fixing to go speak. Well, when I went to this deal, my wife, I said, look, Trump's speaking. We're going to go over and check it out. She says, Willie, do not get on that stage. I said, don't worry. I'm out of this. I'm not getting involved. Bobby Jindal was running. He was a friend of mine. I was like, no, I ain't doing any of that stuff. And so Trump, before he gets off the bed, he goes, Willie, did you want to get up and say anything to the crowd? And I said, no, Mr. Trump, I'm good, man. I'm good. You go ahead, you know. But I thought, these politicians, you know. But I thought, well, he's not a politician, so probably maybe he won't do it. So I go out there, Tucker. I'm like, he gets on the stage. And I thought if he's going to do it right off the bat. And so there's a stairwell. And so I'm kind of hiding in this because I don't really want to be seen at this point. You know, I'm like, somebody be like, there's Willie Robertson. I'm like, no, I look like him, you know, and I'm kind of like leaning in the stairwell. And I'm thinking right off the bat, he's going to go like, hey, guess who's here? You know, nothing. Trump just goes into a speech. He's China. He's 30 minutes deep. By this time, we're laughing. We're like, this is the funnest thing ever. You know, I never dreamed it'd be the president. I was like, this is cool to see, you know. And Trump, 30 minutes deep, he just stops. He looks around and goes, where's Willie? And my heart stopped. I went, oh my gosh, please tell me he knows another guy named Willie at the Oklahoma State Fair. And he just starts walking down the street. He goes, where the hell's Willie at? Where's he at? You know, and nobody knows who he's talking about. Everybody's going, who's Willie? And my buddy's going, Willie, you got to go up there. And I said, I can't go up there. Like, I'm not prepared to go up on the stage. And he's like, he's calling for you on the stage. So I pop up on the stage where everybody goes crazy. Like, it was like, oh my gosh. And so I walk over, I was like, yeah, I'm like waving to the crowd. And so I leaned, I shook his hand. I said, hey, good job, Mr. Trump. You kill it, man. It's awesome. And I go to pull away. He doesn't let go of my hand. He just holds it. And I'm like,
you're in the Trump trap.
And I'm going, uh-oh. And he's holding it. He goes, hey. And he goes, hey, I got something. He said, do y'all know who this is? And everybody goes, this is the biggest television star in America. Everybody's going crazy, you know. He said, there's Willie Robertson, Duck Dynasty. He said, I got one question for Willie. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, please. No. He goes, do you love Trump? And just hands me the microphone.
Do you ever feel like you can't trust the things you hear or read? Like every news source is hollowed, distorted, or clearly just propaganda lying to you? Well, you're not imagining it. If the last few years have proven anything, it's that legacy media exists to distort the truth and to control you, to gatekeep information from the public instead of letting you know what's actually going on. They don't want you to know. But there is, however, a publication that fights this, that is not propaganda, one that we read every month and have for many years. It's called Imprimis. It's from Hillsdale College in Michigan. Imprimis is a free speech digest that features some of the best minds in the country addressing the questions that actually matter, the ones that are not addressed in the Washington Post or on NBC News. The best part of it is free, no cost whatsoever, no strings attached. They just send it to you. Hillsdale will send Imprimis right to your house, no charge. All you got to do is ask. Go to tuckerforhillsdale.com and subscribe for free today. That's tuckerforhillsdale.com. The only way this stays a democracy is if the citizenry is informed. You can't fight tyranny if you don't know what's going on. Imprimis helps. It's free. Don't wait. Sign up now.
That's the Trumpiest question ever.
Tucker, my brain is going so fast. I'm like, because here's the situation. We've got 10,000 people here. They're all there to see him. They're there to see me. And now he's asked me this super awkward question. I'm like, I've already endorsed Bobby Jindal. I'm like, what am I supposed to, you know? And so I lean up to the mic and I go, yeah, I do like me some Trump. And everybody cheers, you know? And I said, and Trump's behind me with his hands on my shoulder. He's ready to if I say the wrong thing, to throw me away. And I said, here's the deal. Me and Mr. Trump have three things in common. We both had successful television shows. We both were successful at business. And we both married people that look way better than we do. Thank you, Oklahoma City. I'm out here. And so I walk off to the deal, and I'm still just like literally kind of shaking from the whole experience. And I get in the stairwell, and my buddy's going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. And my phone just immediately starts going crazy, just buzzing. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh no, what have I done? What have I started now? It's all my buddies going, oh my gosh, we just saw you on TV. Oh my God, you're on TV. And when I'm sending a screenshot, Trump's behind me with a sign, and he's behind me like this. And then there's my wife's. And I went, oh no. And she said, did you just endorse Donald Trump for president? And so I just screenshot the picture with Trump. I sent it to her and I said, no, why would you say that? And she was like, do not get on stage. And there I am on the stage. And the next day, I got in an Uber car in Oklahoma City to go to the airport. I'm sitting right beside this driver, little old guy. He looks at me and goes, what'd you fellas do last night? And I said, we went to the Oklahoma State Fair. He goes, so did I. He goes, I went to see Donald Trump. I said, did you? He goes, he's going to be the next president of the United States. I said, you think so? He said, oh yeah, we believe in him. He's going to be the president. I said, did you see that dude that got up in the middle of the speech? I'm this part of his face. He goes, you know who that was? Willie Robertson from Duck Dynasty. He flew in just to endorse Donald Trump for president. And I said, really? He goes, oh yeah. He's a huge fan of Mr. Trump. Yeah, he's a big television guy. And I'm literally, and I said, sir, do you know who I am? He looks at me and goes, no idea. I said, I'm that dude. I was on the stage. And I thought he was going to freak out. He goes, you had a different bandana on. I said, I did have a different bandana on. He goes, yeah, I didn't recognize you with that other bandana on. That's how I met Trump.
Have you ever met him again?
I have, yeah. I saw him a couple of more times. He did, Don Jr. came to the house and hunted. That one we set up Phil. Well, Phil made me so mad, my dad. So, Dad, so Don Jr. is going to come duck hunt with us. He goes, I'm coming down. Let's duck hunt. It's perfect. We set it up. Well, I'm going to Mexico for my anniversary. 4 days. 4 days I'm in Mexico. So I go to Mexico. Yeah, and your phones are all jacked up down there. It's like numbers come in. So I'm leaving the Mexico airport, coming to America. I get this call. But it doesn't say who it is. I answer it. This dude is talking so fast. I'm like, he is nowhere within 1,000 miles of where I live in the South. It was a northern accent. He is, and I'm like, whoa, slow down. Who is this? He goes, it's Don Jr. I said, hey, what's up? I said, oh, we on, huh, Don? He goes, I don't know if I can come. I don't know. We're still, we got to figure out. I said, oh, what happened? He was like, because of what your dad did. I'm like, I've been gone for 4 days. I'm like, 4 days. Who has he offended? What has he done? And I can't understand this about my dad. He lives on the end of a dead-end street, does not have a cell phone, does not have a computer. But somehow he can get messages out all over the world, like instant. It's amazing how he can do this. I'm like, what did he do? He said, he endorsed Ted Cruz. I said, no. I was like, where did that come from? He goes, there's commercials. I said, there's commercials. In 4 days, he has met Ted Cruz and he has endorsed Ted Cruz. And there's commercials. He goes, yes, they're playing right now. So I pull up the commercial. Phil's in the duck blind. So it's Ted, and they've all got face paint on. Ted Cruz has got this face paint, but he doesn't look like he's in play. Yeah, he's like, he looks scared to death. It's like everyone's like got shoes in their back, spits come out of their mouth, and then there's Ted Cruz, like a dude a face paint. And so Phil in the commercial goes, "We're voting for Ted Cruz. He's a brother in Christ. We're all voting for him." And it insinuated like we're all like the whole Duck Dynasty crew is voting for him. I'm not there, obviously. I'm in Mexico. I went, oh my gosh. So I call the house. Mom answers the phone. I said, Mom, where's Phil? He's in the woods. I said, well, crap, I got to talk to him. She goes, well, hey, you can go try to find him. She goes, what's wrong with you? I said, he just made a commercial with Ted Cruz. These are things you have to tell me. Like, you know what I'm saying? You have to let me in on. And she goes, oh, no, he knew you was going to be mad over that. He knew you liked Trump. But, Ted Cruz showed up with a bunch of TV cameras, and I don't know. The next thing I know, and I said, well, Mom, he said we're all voting for him. We're not all voting. And she goes, no. He didn't mean all you boys. He meant all the Christians. I said, Mom, I'm a Christian. Well, you know what I mean. So we set up. So Don Jr. finally he's like, all right, because he was like, I'm not coming down there if you're endorsing. It was awkward. So I said, oh, we're gonna set up Dad good. So we're gonna burn him on this one. Don Jr. comes down, duck hunts, and he's lights out. Shot. Oh yeah. And I knew it. So he's now. So Dad's blown away. It's good. So
by what a good shot Don is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I reached out to Hannity. I said, Handy, I said, put me and Phil on the show. I'm backing Trump. He's backing Cruz, apparently. And I said, I'm going to set that sucker up. So we get on the show. Dad and I are going after it. And I said, hang on. I said, I got one question to ask Phil since we're on the show. I said, Phil recently went duck hunting with Ted Cruz, and he also went hunting with Trump. I just said Trump. I didn't say Don. I just said Trump. I said, Dad, who exactly is the better hunter? Phil said, ain't a doubt about it. That cat from New York can shoot, son. So I got him saying that Cruz wasn't a good ducker. Because I asked Dad, he said, oh, yeah, he couldn't hit the broadside of a bar. And finally, Cruz dropped out, thank goodness. And so then Phil came on board.
He did. Has he been on board ever since?
He has been.
I mean, is there anyone in the world I think things have changed since then, of course. But like the world that you live in is probably pretty much 100% Trump at this point.
Yeah, down there, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, now it is for sure.
Did you have a lot of friends voting Kamala Harris?
Yeah. Just because I know a lot of people outside of Louisiana, so.
No, I mean in
production.
Louisiana.
Yeah, all my TV friends. I've done tons of TV. I've got friends all over who were, and we had great debates, but it's the way it should be. Like, we debate, we love each other, we're friends, and I can certainly look at Trump and call them, like, that doesn't make sense, or that's not how I feel, or that's not what I would say, or that's ugly, or that's unkind, or whatever it is. And so, and this year I was staying out of it. I really was, because of the book. Because when I wrote this book, and I said, I don't want to get pulled in, I want this message to come out. I want the message of the gospel, and I don't want it to get gummed up with. And I understand, because I was involved. I was the first speaker in the 2016 convention. I was the first.
You were?
You don't remember?
No.
That powerful message that I gave? Golly, Tucker, where were you?
I think I was just in a cloud of euphoria.
I was the first speaker, and now you got to remember 16. When I went out there, they were like, all right, look, we don't know how this is going to go. Remember, because they were fighting. They didn't know whether they were going to walk off or.
Oh, yeah.
So they were like, good luck, Willie. Because I was the first guy out. I was the first guy on the stage. And Don Jr. called and he said, hey, my father wants you to speak at the convention. I was like, and I was gathering my breath to say no. Because I was just going to be like, no, because in my mind, I thought it was like 45 minutes. I was like, I don't have 45 minutes in me on politics, And I'm going, and I said, let me check my schedule. That's what I said. Let me check my schedule. And he goes, okay, well, check your schedule and they'll get back with you. So like the next day, some lady calls and says, hey, so we've got you scheduled. You're the first speaker. And I'm fixing to tell her, like, whoa. I didn't say yes, And she goes, you're the first one up. You go for 3 minutes. And I went, 3 minutes? That's a commercial break. Yeah, of course I'll do 3 minutes, And so I was the first speaker in the 16th.
What'd you say?
I can't even remember. It was nothing. It was like, I really don't.
Did you think he was going to win that year?
I did.
Did you think he was going to win this year?
I did.
Why?
Well, I thought he had a really good, I called it at 8:33 Central Time that night. When I saw Virginia and North Carolina, I said, it's over. Virginia was close. I was like, it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't sure about North Carolina. That was the only state that confuses me sometimes. But Virginia, I mean, I think he was winning. Like, like early on, I was like, oh, I told my family, and I texted my friend, I said, Trump wins. It's over. But yeah, I had a good sense about it. It felt like it did in 16. It felt like I was just kind of looking at the culture and looking at what people are saying. I was like, he's got a lot of people that are, because it wasn't as weird as it was before. Like, that was kind of cool. It was like you weren't ostracized as much. I mean, 16. I mean, it was people did not like him in 20. Oh my gosh. But you had that COVID. I mean, the whole COVID. And I said that year, probably earlier that year, somebody asked me who I thought was going to win. I said, oh, Trump. I said, Trump's got this. There's no way he can lose. The economy's strong. We're safe. We're not in a war. I said, that's it. That's game over. I said, unless something really weird happens. I said that.
Like they manufacture a virus in China.
And then the weird thing happened. And there you go. But I went to bed last time I went to bed in 20 thinking I was like, oh, it's over.
Oh, so you fell asleep before they shut down
I woke up and I was like, uh-oh.
The polling places.
And I was like, uh-oh.
So here's a question you shouldn't have to think about, but probably do. What would you do if your family needed life-saving medication and you couldn't get any? You hate to think you're going to face that. We depend on our supply chains all the way from Asia to here, thousands of miles across the Pacific Ocean. But let's be honest, that chain is fragile. Just one weather event, one container ship accident, an unexpected crisis, a war, we're on the brink of a couple, and suddenly you can't get the medication that you need, that your family needs. Now, people are going to tell you, don't worry about it, calm down, everything is fine. All right, but why not spend a little bit of money to make sure everything actually will be fine? And that's where the JASE case comes in, J-A-S-E case. It's not paranoid, it's planning. The JASE case is a simple portable supply of emergency medications, ones you actually will need, that you can keep at home so you're totally prepared. It's better to be too early than too late, though at this point, nobody thinks we're going to be too early with this. Check it out for yourself. Go to jase.com, Jase.com, and use the code Tucker for a discount. That's jase.com, promo code Tucker. You should do it. We have.
Did anyone in Louisiana have questions about that election? 2020.
All of them.
It's kind of what I thought.
All of them. We've all got questions. But I don't understand what it is. Like, I've listened to people over time. There's tons of people who question that stuff.
Always.
They question, they question, like, was it done right? Was it, I mean, I didn't realize it was a crime to question just to make sure that, hey, did y'all do that right? Because it seems strange, maybe it wasn't, but
it was strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the people in Louisiana are all like,
Yeah, it was pretty obvious.
Got a few cities we're waiting on. We'll let you know tomorrow. How much are we behind?
Yeah, they had to tally the number of votes they needed. So what's the new show?
Yeah, we are getting back into production. It's kind of like the next generation of Duck Dynasty. So my kids are older. Well, so since 2017, 2024, yeah, a lot's happened. The cast has grown up. And then everybody else is still around. And so, yeah, back with A&E, we met and they said, hey, you guys interested in, kind of redoing the show? And felt like the time was right, met with the family, prayed about it, was like, I think so. The kids were excited and said, yeah, let's show, realized, Tucker, what, we talk about it's a long show and it's like, it's hard work, whatever, I mean, it's a lot. But man, when you talk to people and they tell you like how much that meant to them and how much, I can't tell you how many people just like, it was what my dad and I watched together. And when my mom passed away, it was like it was the only thing that we could laugh at together. And we watched as a family. Now I have like 25-year-olds, even here. I mean, these kids are like, when I was 18, I watched every show y'all had and was just, watching the prayer at the end, and just watching our family be positive with our, the roles were correct. And it wasn't a lot of just darkness and stuff that people watch, and it wasn't just a train wreck. And so it's really inspiring. You're like, oh man, it's good to make something, especially when it came out originally. It was pretty much a little bright light amongst a lot of, some dark stuff out there, some dark TV. So I think when you can do that and you can provide that for people,
there's no pressure at all from your corporate masters to change anything or make it different.
No, to be honest with you, I feel stronger now than I would then because they know who we are,
Yeah.
They know what we're all about. It's not like, back then they didn't know. They were like, I think they're religious. I think, but now, obviously, over the past, since 2000, last 12 years, you know where we stand, you know what our morals are, you know what's important to us. And we have a lot of followers, you know what I'm saying? Like we have social media for Sadie has millions of people, my kids have followers, so a lot of people are interested in that. And they're interested in, I think they want to be entertained, but they also, I think they learn stuff. I think they can watch and learn, A lot of people that watch our show are like, we never prayed. Like, we never prayed before a meal. We didn't even know, and we started trying that. Probably more often than not, even the praying, they rarely ever sat down and even ate together anymore. That's a gone.
That's the saddest thing.
They were like, we never even have dinner. Everybody's just grabbing it and going, meet you there, meet you at the deal, go to the ballpark, And so this whole idea of just sitting down and just spending time with each other at dinner was becoming a foreign concept. And so I think people can learn and they can be like, oh, that's, maybe they don't have the family we do. Maybe they don't have, maybe everybody doesn't live there like that, but they can kind of live through that and kind of, start their own, traditions or doing something more as a family and realizing, the importance of it. And then also just taking a break and not, I think what I love about Dynasty was we didn't take ourselves too seriously. We had fun. We laughed and, oh God, do we need that? We need some, everybody's so serious.
I think if you had written this book 10 years ago, it would have seemed pretty weird. Mm-hmm. Why is a reality TV show writing a book about spreading the gospel?
Right.
It does not seem weird now. Do you think the country's changed?
I think it's changing. Yeah. I think it's certainly changing. I think people are looking for answers. That's why I wrote the book. I think, because I think we get so lethargic and some of this was even in churches, they just get lethargic and they get off, you got to know what your goal is and what you're here for and, what's your mission, what's your mission in life. Well, and I take my mission from Matthew 28, which is it's labeled as the Great Commission. And Jesus says, go out and make disciples of all nations, baptize people, teach people. 3 things, 3 specific ideas. Make disciples, baptize people, teach people. So those are the last things he said before he left, like, make sure you do this. So when that's your mission, you just think about what you've got to do to accomplish those 3 things. You're probably going to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a disciple out of them, if you're going to baptize them, if you're going to teach them, you're going to have some sort of conversation. And so what I find is people, if your mission in life is, as a Christian, if you're like, well, I try to go to church as often as I can, I try to be a good person, nothing in and of itself wrong with that. But that's not a mission. And what happens is the mission becomes a little I go to church so I can listen, so I can learn, so I can try to get through my week, and everything becomes inward. Those 3 things Jesus said were outward. It's out. Other people. Not just you, it's other people. And again, back to my father who was sitting in a bar. The guy drives up there. Why? He's not going to be a member of his church. He doesn't have any money. He's a reprobate, who's got a terrible reputation. What drove him to drive up there, that hour drive, walk into that bar? What drove him to do that? It was just for him, just for that guy.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I don't know if would I drive, would I be like, but he did that. It literally changed my life. It changed my whole family's life. And if that would have been it, I'm not a big prosperity guy, and look what God has done. Look at what he gave us.
It paid off.
It didn't matter. If it just changed our life and kept our family together, worth it.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who we are, worth it. I got to see my dad and grow up with two parents, worth it, you know. And you look over time as then dad took that and then never went about this for money or fame or anything. In fact, really pushed that away more than embraced it. Even when I told you the show and he's like, no, you know. And that was a little different too with us. Like we didn't go, an email was sent to us, a company came to us, the network came to us. We weren't trying to go become famous.
Right.
And so you see a lot today, you know, people are like, I'll do whatever it takes to get famous, you know? And so there's no authenticity there. It's like, we want you to do this. Fine, I'll do it. Will I be famous? Yes, then I'll do it, you know?
Why would you want to be famous?
Why would who?
Anyone.
Oh. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people, I mean, from social
people
media.
do. Yeah, people want to be famous. What do you think of it? You are famous. What do you think of it?
It has its good parts about it.
What are those?
The people I've been able to meet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know you if I wasn't, you know. Well, you wouldn't have invited me on this podcast had I not had a TV show, you know. So.
I don't know. I ran into you in an elevator in Nashville.
That's true. But you thought I was a homeless guy.
I did. Yeah.
You put money in my coffee cup, which was
filled with dip spit. Anyone who's
I did. I spit in my cup, and you looked at me and you said, "Did you spit in your cup?" First words you said to me, you said, "Did you spit in that cup?"
Anyone who dips in an elevator is a potential friend of mine. That's how I feel about it.
And you started doing your little maniacal laugh, and you started laughing so hard, and it was so funny because of all the people I was expecting to see, it wasn't you.
Catch you do. I didn't expect to catch Willie Robertson dipping in an elevator, but that was it. I was
headed to my room. I had been promoting this book, and you happened to be there as well, which is how this all ended up. And I think God, you know, I don't know. I think God works like that. I think He puts people together, and you know, just seems too weird to me not. So I think there's those opportunities that people have and they meet, and some you take advantage of, some you don't, some you miss, some you're like, oh crap, you know. And but I just I don't know. I mean, well, He did that in the Bible, you know.
Yeah,
there was things moving around, and so so it could be for that person, could be for someone else, could be for something completely different, you know, some situation that maybe needs to get out. And so, but it was interesting that I had written this book. I had decided this year I'm not jumping in this, even though it was so tempting. Everybody tried to get me to, you know,
get involved.
Let's go, you know, and I'd really just said, no, I'm not. And I'm just going to promote this book. And then I meet you, and then you said, hey, you should come on the podcast. And it was scheduled for a few months ago. And I went, I'm going to get pulled into the politics. I said, I'm going to get pulled into this thing. And then as it turned around and spun around, we still did podcasts after the election. And then, you know, and that was kind of the commitment I made. Just don't get so involved. Cause I didn't want the mess. I don't care what, I really don't care. Like, if it's the gospel or some political agenda, I'm going with the gospel every time. Because this is the power. This is, you know, if we can change people's, you know, I just saw it. I mean, it changed me, but it, like somebody like my father can change people's lives and turn them into completely different people. And so that's what I want to get to people, you know.
Politics turns people into completely different people too, but rarely for the better.
Right. I mean, it has its place, and it, you know, and I'm not casting aspersions on people who, you know, want our country to be, you know, a great country, and but we're, you know, I'm not even one that says we have to, everything's got to be like you have to have Christians in every position. I mean, no, that's okay. I mean, we can work together and figure that out. Let the gospel do what it does, and let politics do what it does, and let government, you know.
So almost like render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and
exactly.
Give to God. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Where do you get that?
Yeah, because, and that's the thing. Had back to mission. So I'm into that mission: make disciples, baptize people, teach people. Not to, you know. I think if Jesus wanted us to just make sure your government is, He would have talked about it, right? He would have said,
yeah,
let's lay out a plan and all that. because it was, under these governmental things that he was going to end up being crucified anyway. So, and those things they're of the world. I mean, they're here and they come and they die and they go away and they change and, stuff happens. And, I was like, if that's where we end up, and I do think there's a lot of darkness for sure, but they need the gospel. They don't need a better program from DC, and that's what'll change it. Oh, look, now families are staying together and, it's not going to be that way. And it's going to be when the church wakes up and decides to go out and have that kind of mission, is to go after. But we can't hate each other. That's the problem. We can't hate each other. Because that's the deal, man. I can't. And I saw that so much in this one. God, I got roasted. I mean, people would get in my face. And if I said if I said, I'm writing this book and I'm not doing as much with, and people would just be like, what? This country is, we're not going to have a country tomorrow. But what I don't like about the tiger, it's like my fault. It's like they're telling me it's my fault that I'm not. I'm like, how's it my fault? Yeah. And that's where we got to. And then it was just bullying everywhere. Everybody's just bullying everybody. I mean, you certainly saw that with, the Democrats been bullying on, you better vote this way, like we're telling you what to do. And I'm just not good at people telling me what to do. I'm like,
yeah, I know
don't tell me what to do. Don't tell, vote for, I'm going to vote. But now it's like, no, you got to do more. You've got to go out and, and do all this. And I understand they're passionate and all that, but we've got to let people. And some of that's it's their job is to win the vote. You know what I'm saying?
It doesn't answer the deepest questions, like what happens when you die.
Right.
It doesn't address that. So
when you die,
when you die.
When you die.
So my last question is, I do think a lot of people are all of a sudden wondering, like, is there something beyond what we can see, hear, feel, and taste? I mean, is there a spiritual realm? Is there a God?
Mm-hmm.
And people all around me are asking those questions. What would you recommend to them? Like how to pursue that? Something stirs in you think, wow, maybe I should learn more.
Right. I mean, I found those answers in the Bible, and particularly in the New Testament. That's where I found those answers. It comes down to the faith. Like, you've got to have this faith, and you're going to have to jump and believe something that you can't see. It's interesting how people can't do that. I remember I was talking to a guy one time. I was having one of these conversations. I don't know if this story's in the book, but there's a lot in there. We're having this story, and he's like, I don't believe in faith. I don't see it. I don't believe it, And he just got married, and I said, and we're at a hunting camp. And I said, where's your wife right now? He's like, she's at home, and I said, I bet she's with another guy. And he said, no,
I love how you proselytize.
Yeah. And he said, no, she's not. And he gets, I can tell he's mad. He's like,
well, yeah.
He's been married like 6 months. I said, oh no, for sure. She's with another guy. Like, no doubt. And he goes, no, she's not. What are you doing? I said, how do you know she's not? He goes, because I trust her. And I said, so you do have faith in something that you can't see. And he went, I've never thought about it that way. He was an atheist. He said, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of this stuff. And so it was just a small move, though. We moved him off of that position. Now we have moved him to, there are some things that even though I can't see it, I have faith and
Why
I trust
do
it.
more preachers not start with that? I bet your wife's sleeping with somebody else. That works.
Maybe they don't go to enough hunting camps.
Yes.
I mean, for me though, what else? I mean, like, he's an atheist. What am I supposed to say? Okay, good luck with that. Let me know how that works for you. I mean, I'm trying to think of. Paul says in the New Testament, Paul, who knew the gospel better than anybody, who's a writer, and he says, pray for me that the mystery of the gospel can come out of my mouth more clearly. He's praying that it can come out more clearly. And my question is, why? Why is he knows this stuff. Like, he wrote it. He's writing because some weren't obeying it. Some weren't getting it. He's going, So you have to keep coming at, like, keep asking more questions. Maybe I'm not asking the right questions. I did that. There's a story in the book, a beautiful story of a guy that I just kept, I kept trying to, he had problems with his brain. Like he had lesions on, I thought he was going to die. And I was like, he's going to die. And I don't think he's a Christian. I don't think he's a believer. And so I'm just like, hey, man, have you thought about heaven and how? He would say the same thing every time to me. Willie, he who had not sinned cast the first stone. That's what he would say. He was quoting a scripture, and I knew what that meant. That's redneck for, I don't want to hear what you got to say. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not interested. And I was like, So I could have thought, well, I tried, I get to heaven. I tried to, remember I told you 4 times, and every time he would just divert, wall. And so finally we're in a car. We're in New York City, working on a business deal. We're talking about money. He's a super rich guy. We're talking about money. He's over and he's smoking. He's like, we're going to make so much money. He was so excited about it, And I look at him and I asked, I said, how old are you? And he said, I'm 58 years old. And I said, I bet you're going to be dead in 14 years. He just looks back. That was a cigarette outside. He goes, what? I said, I bet you're going to be dead in 14 years. He goes, why would you say that? And I said, the way you live. I said, but I'm just guessing, but I said, have you ever thought about that? Like, what's going to happen then? What happens then? I said, we just did an investment. Are you investing in anything beyond here? Or is it just here? He goes, I've never thought about that before. You know what he didn't say? He who had not sinned cast the first stone.
No,
we got past that.
Yeah, you did.
We finally got past that. And I was like, if we get past that. And so we get to the hotel. We're in Manhattan. And he goes, can you come up and tell me more about that? I said, yeah. So I go to my room. I get my Bible. I go to his room. And I sit down, and that's the verse. I got like 7 verses. It's not a lot. And I just start reading them to him. He just stands up in the middle of the hotel room. I'll never forget it. And he yells at his wife. She's in the bed. He goes, I'm getting baptized. And I was like, man, it's midnight. We're in Central Park. I don't know where. I got to go find some water here, And which I was ready. I was like, we'll go find some. And I said, well, let's go. I guess we're in a hotel in New York City. I said, we'll go find some water. He said, no, I got to tell everybody. I got to tell everybody I know that what's fixing to happen. This is the same guy I've been working on for years. And he's like, and now he's saying, and he emailed everybody he knows, everybody. So finally, like a month later, I show up to his house, a big house. There's people everywhere. There's people from New York, people from LA, Florida. People have shown up because he said, I'm getting baptized. Come watch this. And so I get there and I walk up because everybody gathers around and goes, Willie, tell him what you told me in that hotel room that night. And I said, yeah, no problem. So I go through that. So his wife gets baptized. Daughter gets baptized. He gets baptized. He said, anybody else? And they just start streaming in that blue jeans, taking their boots off. Just over and over and over. Just like what's happened in the Bible. You see that in the book of Acts. It's like 25 people that night over that conversation. But I didn't stop that conversation. When you don't hear it, you keep on. And plus, I'm still there. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes. Sometimes it takes 2 hours. Sometimes it takes 20 years. Because I don't give up on anybody. Because they didn't give up on Dad. I would have given up on Phil a long time ago. I'd have said, forget that sucker. He needs to go to jail, But that dude didn't give up. His sister didn't give up on him. That guy went up there and talked to him. And it changed my whole life. And so I never give up on anybody. You never know. You never know when that time is. And they're like, oh, no. And they're ready. And they're like, so we're just really planting the seeds, Tucker. I'm just planting the seeds because I'm ready. I want to, make disciples. I want to baptize people. I want to teach people. That's what I'm doing. So everything I look at in life, where does it fall in that category? This book does, the TV show does, the stuff that my kids do, the family stuff, all of it can fall through there. And that's where I want to, it's way more than going to church and, having some look and being a Christian, way more than that. That's like an hour a week. That's nothing. Like, I'm like, how about this? You take your hour, don't go to church. I want you for the other 6 days. And we'll go change the world, you know? But people got a bad idea on that. They're thinking, isn't it just like you show up an hour? I mean, try that in your marriage. Try that with your kid. Try to see them an hour, you know, and see if that gets you enough to get through. And so it's just a bigger idea and it's a bigger concept. And then when you're in that moment, when you're there with people and you watch their lives change, and then you watch the fruit of that come out of it, it's like a high. I mean, you're just like, that's what it's all about, you know? That's the kind of stuff to where you're then going, there is hope. And so I live my life based on there's hope in something beyond. If it's not, it's not. And I've hopefully lived a great life. I have great friends. I've, you know, my faith and the principles of the Bible has probably kept me out of a lot of misery and hell and, you know, bad stuff. And, but I'm thinking that there is, and I see evidence everywhere. You know,
like what?
I mean, I can see it in people's lives. I can, you know, if Jesus lives in us, the Holy Spirit lives in us. I can see it in their lives. I can see this. I can see people doing this. I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why? Like, there's no advantage. It's not financial advantage.
Exactly.
I'm seeing them share and do things and sacrifice, and I see that
for each other.
Yeah, for each other, for other people, and for, you know, I can see it. I can feel it. Like, at times I feel stuff too. I feel, you know, like, it just seems like, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of. I can't help but think something was going on with Trump. Like, there was a lot of weird. Turn your head the right way. Doing this. We were shooting birds today.
Yeah.
How close is that?
Too close.
I mean, to who knows what would happen? Who knows what today would look like? You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? So it just, you know, I'm just saying it looked like God was doing something there. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know, you know, but that's the faith part. I think sometimes, Tucker, I think we think our goal is to try to figure it out.
No.
Like we have to know. We got to read the signs, and everybody was wanting to know, like, what's going to happen. Even with our country, like, where will we be in 20 years? It's like we want to know, but there's too many factors. Like, you have to have faith.
It's impossible. It's
impossible. You can't figure that out. You got to live. I can always look back and it makes sense. I'm like, oh, wow, that made sense. But looking forward, that's the message that but somebody's been sharing this message for 2,000 years. We're halfway around the globe from where it happened and still talking about it.
True.
They had no money. They had no fame. They weren't soldiers. They weren't, you know, they didn't even speak the same language. We're speaking a different language. We are sitting here today halfway across the globe and we're still talking about it. I'm still writing books about it, living our lives on it and professing it. That's a big deal. Like, I haven't seen that with anything else. Everything else 2,000 years ago, we don't even know what it is. They're gone, exactly. You know? It's just gone. So
we don't know their names.
Yeah, not at all.
Willie Robertson, thank you very much.
Awesome.
So it turns out that YouTube is suppressing our show. I know, shocking that in an election year, with everything at stake, Google would be putting its thumb on the scale and preventing you from hearing anything that the people in charge don't want you to hear. But it turns out it's happening. So what can you do about it? Well, we could whine about it, but that's a waste of time. We're not in charge of Google. Or we could find a way around it, a way that you could actually get information that's true. It's not intentionally deceptive. And the way to do that on YouTube, we think, is to subscribe to our channel. Subscribe, and you'll have a much higher chance of hearing what we say, and we hope you will.